Hey, caregiver family. I hope that you all are having an absolutely great day. It's been a while, I know, but someone once said, life just be life. And so, with it lifed, and I had to hold off for a minute. But nevertheless, we are back, and I'm excited about kicking off season 4 of the My Favorite Girl Caregivers Corner podcast. As always, I'd like to take a moment to thank those of you who have subscribed to the podcast and those who are following my caregiver journey on my social media platforms. Before I go any further, I ask that if you haven't already, if you will take a moment now and subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you are listening on. We are on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and of course on the website at www.priscillajjohnlewee.com. So go ahead and subscribe wherever it is you're listening from if you haven't. Then go ahead and share it with your family and your friends, especially those who you know are serving as caregivers. You can also follow me on my social media platforms. You'll find me on Facebook and YouTube at My Favorite Girl and Alzheimer's, and on Instagram and TikTok at My Favorite Girl and Alz, My Favorite Girl ALZ. The mission of this podcast is to bring inspiration, education, resources, hope, and strength to caregivers so you can keep going, keep pushing, keep loving, and by all means to keep caring. As you may or may not know, November is National Family Caregiver Appreciation Month. And this entire season of the podcast will be dedicated to celebrating caregivers. I believe in celebrating caregivers. I personally think that all caregivers are heroes or sheroes, whichever way you want to look at it. But I think that they all deserve to be celebrated. And I don't say that just because I'm a caregiver. I say that because I believe that anybody who lays down their lives for that of someone else deserves to be celebrated. And so that's what we're going to do. The theme of this entire season is going to be celebrating caregivers. And we're going to bring on some amazing caregivers, some people who have done just that. They've laid down their lives to care for their loved ones. And so I'm excited about all of it. And we're going to talk about just caregiving and what it is. And so, even as we go into that, just so you know, just in case those who are not caregivers may be listening, somebody has shared this with you. Just want to give you a brief definition of what a caregiver is. Don't want to insult your intelligence, but just so you know, a caregiver is an unpaid individual who is a spouse, a partner, a family member, a friend, or a neighbor who is involved in assisting others, mainly their loved ones, with activities of daily living or medical tasks. And just to give you a few statistics from the National Alliance from Caregiving and AARP, and these are from 2015 from an article in Caregiving in the US. According to their statistics, there are approximately 43.5 million caregivers who provide unpaid care to an adult or a child. And at that time, they're saying for the last 12 months. So at that time, that was in 2015. We're in 2023, heading over into 2024. So you can only imagine how those numbers have climbed. Then it says that about 34.2 million Americans have provided unpaid care to an adult age 50 or older in the last 12 months. The majority of the caregivers, which is 82% of the care, they care for one other adult, while 15% care for two adults. And then there's 3% who care for three or more adults. Now, that is a whole lot. I know at one point I myself was caring for two, and that was a lot. And I promise you, I can't even imagine what caring for three or more people would look like for just one or two people. Then about 15.7 million adult family caregivers care for someone who has Alzheimer's disease or other dementia. Those facts came from the Alzheimer's Association 2015 disease facts and figures. Then we have family caregivers who spend an average of 24.4 hours per week providing care. And that's probably, if I would take myself into account, that's probably in addition to your full time 40-hour plus sometimes a week job. Family caregivers reside with those who reside with those that they provide care for is saying 40.5 hours per week. That's a whole lot of hours. Those caring for a spouse or a partner, 44.6 hours per week performing caregiver tasks. That's a whole lot. And so that was 2015. We're heading into 2024. So many other statistics that are out there as it relates to family caregivers, the cost, the gender, those who take care of who, the care tasks that are involved in that, the challenge, all of those things are out there with the statistics, those that are, those things are involved in their day-to-day caring. And I believe that statistics are great. However, I also believe that there's nothing like hearing from someone who is on the front line of caring and can share their own personal journey and what it's like to care and provide support for someone that they love. And so I'm excited today to be able to have a conversation. I have the privilege of having a conversation with Commissioner Dianne Williams-Cox, who is the Tallahassee City Commissioner for Seat 5. And I'm going to give you just a snippet of her background before I bring her in to say something. And it's just a small snippet. Some of this has probably increased a little bit, add on, but she'll correct that as she comes on. But just a snippet so you know who Dianne is. Dianne has been for years a leading advocate for enhanced women's rights, including equal pay and eradicating workplace harassment, among others. She encouraged commissioners to take meetings into the neighborhoods where inequities are obvious and where people feel they have no influence. At school board meetings, she voiced concern over failing schools on the South Side. Her years of championing the causes of others made her the recipient of the 2018 Capital Outlook's Community Advocate of the Year Award. Dianne's service to the community has also been evident through her service to the Florida and Leon Democratic Party. She has served as the public relations chair for the Leon County Democratic Executive Committee, president of the Capital City Democratic Women's Club, and Region 1 chair for the Democratic Women of Florida. Dianne most recently served as vice chairman with the Leon County Democratic Executive Committee until her election to the city commission. Dianne is married to her high school sweetheart, Tommy Cox. And she and her husband of over 35 years have 3 adult sons and 6, I think maybe now 7 grandkids. And so all of that, that she does. And we're bringing on Commissioner Dianne Williams-Cox. Welcome to the My Favorite Girl Caregivers Corner podcast, Commissioner.
Thank you. And it is a pleasure to be here. And let me just start by saying, Priscilla, you are outstanding. You are you're a role model for caregiving. I follow you and your favorite girl, and it's just remarkable the care that you provide for your mom and your grandmother when you had her with you as well as your daughters. So thank you for doing all that you do. You're showing us how to do it with grace and with dignity as well as poise. So thank you so very much for this opportunity to come on to share. And yes, just a few corrections. Mr. Cox and I will be celebrating our 38th wedding anniversary in December.
Wow.
We went on our first date on July 25th, 1980. And 5.5 years later, we got married, and we have 3 grown sons and 7 heartbeats, our grandchildren, and a bonus heartbeat that we have as well. So we've been very blessed and highly favored to have a wonderful, wonderful family, and whom I love dearly, and will do anything in the world that I can for them.
I absolutely love it. So I had 3 years off, but that's a long time and I love it. And, one of the things that when I first thought about this season and celebrating caregivers, your name was the first one that popped in my head because I looked at
Mhm.
the fact that, you have such a demanding job. You're out there serving our community. You've been doing so for some years and you serve our community with great passion and your heart is there in everything you do. And, not always, treated the best. Sometimes it's a lot. And so, considering that and the fact that you're in a pretty high position in the city, and it just goes to show when I thought about the fact that nobody is exempt, no matter where you serve, what you do, nobody is exempt from caring. And so, if you don't mind, if you would just share with us, 38 years, and what year did your caregiver journey start?
Well, I will say that most of my life has been in a caregiver's role. My grandmother showed us how to do it. But here with my husband began to lose his sight somewhere around 1996, 97. And so he ended up retiring from his career, his job at Tallahassee Memorial Hospital after 23 years of employment, or somewhere around 2000, 2001. So he has been retired due to his sight for that number of years. And as of recent years, he has now been struck with a chronic illness, cirrhosis of the liver.
Okay.
Now, normally when you hear that, that's usually someone is alcohol related. But my husband does not drink, never has. He doesn't drink or smoke. So it's fatty liver. And so any of us could become a victim of liver cirrhosis. And so as a result of that, he is, we're blessed to be on the liver transplant list. But in the meantime, we have to balance and maintain his care to make sure that he's well enough when a liver becomes available. So the latest things that we've been dealing with is dealing with fluid retention and fluid buildup. And so managing his health care and mine, because I'm diabetic. So, he's 63, I'm 60. So we're around here been taking care of one another all these years. And so managing healthcare, you don't really know how it really works. You think having insurance is enough, but no, you really need an advocate to make sure, because you have all these doctors and the coordination of the doctors and the visits and where they are. We have to coordinate that. Yesterday, we had to go over to Shands in Gainesville to get something done that can be done in Tallahassee, but you got to get to the folks to be able to get it done. And, when you're dealing with your loved one, you want it done like right now, but they have so many patients that it's hard for them to get to you. So you have to be, assertive. You have to be able to speak up. You've got to have someone who can help you understand what these medical terms are. We're blessed that we have a daughter-in-law who is a nurse practitioner. We have a son who is a physical therapist, and they can help us decipher and break down these medical terms and help us understand what is what. And so we've been very fortunate in that. My husband and I live alone. We do have our boys, two of our youngest sons live here in the city, so they come through. We have grandchildren here; they come through. So, but for the most part, we're here managing and taking care of one another. And you're right, my schedule is very busy, but I have to drop everything and rearrange and move things around because my husband's care is most important. It is most important. All these other things can be handled, can be done either by someone else, or I can do it remotely or virtually. Yesterday, while I was sitting in the hallways at Shands, I was on a committee meeting back here in Tallahassee because that's what I had to do. And when Shands called with an appointment, you dare not make it because they're doing what you need them to do to pay your attention and get you what you need. So we drove over early in the morning and were able to come back after he received his treatment. So this is our life. This is what we do. Um, the nights are long sometimes because his comfort level is most important, and trying to balance that and meals and just, doing the things that we would do. And like I said, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, I watched her care for us as well as her daughter when her daughter was stricken with cancer. So I've learned from the best that you must pack patience. And sometimes that doesn't feel good because you just, and then you see what you see. You see big, strong people become ill. And so you have to deal with that mentally to understand that, these are things that they would rather not have to bother you or ask you to do anything, but because they need you, you've got to make yourself available. Because one of the things that I always recall is that when you take your marriage vows, what they say is in sickness and in health. Now, you better mean that because you don't know when it's coming. But if you live long enough, it is going to come and it is going to happen. And if the shoe is on the other foot, if it was my husband having to care for me, I would want him to care for me in the best possible way. So I'm going to do the best I can with him, get the help that we need, find out what it is that we need to do, drive him and take him where he needs to be, and do those things that make him comfortable. Now, am I perfect? Absolutely not. We make mistakes. We sometimes just being human, but you've got to balance all of that, and then you got to have a life yourself. You got to put your mask on first. I've got to take my medicine. I've got to make sure that I eat. I got to make sure because I can't help anybody if I'm on the floor.
That's
So
very, very
as
true.
as, as a caregiver, you've just got to learn to do that balance. And what is the foundation of all of this is the faith of the having faith in the Lord Jesus,
Yes.
knowing that in all things He will strengthen you. And many mornings I wake up because my body aches because being up and down. Sometimes my body aches, and I just said, thank you, Lord Jesus, for strengthening me, and just give me what I need to be able to do what I need to do in this day and through this day. And so it is my faith. It is that I know that God is doing this. He's doing what He's doing, and He has a reason for it, and that we are going to be victorious. My husband
Yes.
is going to be well again, and we're going to celebrate now, but we're going to also celebrate when he has what he needs to not be ill. And so that's what keeps me going. That's what gives me the strength to keep moving on, knowing that He's right there with us.
Yeah. And that is very important. That is the one thing that I have had to lean on. When people ask me, how do I do it? How in the world? It's my faith. It is my belief that, even in this place that I'm in, that God has given me the grace to be
Amen.
able to do what I do. And
Amen.
so when you have that, I mean, I personally, I can't imagine what my life, what caregiving, any of this would look like if it wasn't for my faith and my belief in the
Yes.
God whom I serve.
Yes.
To each its own. This is not about that, but that's where my faith lies, and in hearing you in your faith. And you said some other very key things, and I smile because what I realize is, especially for our age group, and our parents showed us so much of what it's like to be selfless, is what I like
Yes.
to say. To
Yes.
be selfless, be able to care for somebody, think about somebody other than yourself, but be able to simply give everything that you have to caring for whoever it is.
Yes.
And I think that, in some instances, in the times in which we live, the younger generations are missing that because you have those who are not as caring. They're more selfish. You find that you have more selfish people this day and time than you do selfless people. And unfortunately, it hurts in the long run because back in the day, families, you didn't put your loved ones in homes and
No.
different places. You did what you had to do to take care of your family members, whether it was grandma, whether it was auntie. Sometimes it's the family friend across the street who is auntie.
Right.
I mean, even with my grandmother who I took care of, Kaylin and I took care of. I often, that's my grandma by love. There was no bloodline there, but you couldn't
Right.
tell us.
I
Nobody
recall.
knew.
I recall.
because, I'm like, she was my grandmother. And so, my prayer is that others, even the whole idea and mission behind this podcast, is that we would be able to inspire other people to do the same thing. Let other
Yes.
people know that, hey, it really is okay to care. Does it take a lot? It does. It takes a whole lot, but it's also doable. And
And it's
so,
also rewarding. It is
yeah,
rewarding because you get to see those good days. You know, there are some bad days, but you get to see those good days, and those are the days that you celebrate. And so, and all sickness is not unto death. And once that healing occurs, again, you get to celebrate that, and you think I played a role in that. I did the best I could, and so I'm happy because I would have no guilt, no things that I would have held back if something should happen. I won't have that guilt feeling. And I was able to, my husband and I was able to provide care for my grandmother in the last 6 months of her life in our home. And so we were rewarded by that. And I think about my husband was more helpful with me with my grandmother than some of the other family members. And so I remember that. I cherish that and cherish those thoughts and just appreciate him even the more because he did those things. And so,
yeah,
you know, it's love. That's what it is. It's love. You
yeah,
may not be walking around being mushy and all of that, but it is love is a verb. Love is what love
action.
does.
That's right.
And
That's
when
right.
I can say I love you all day, but if I don't show it, then that's lip service.
Yep. Tinkling brass, clankling
Yes,
cymbal. Tinkling brass, clankling cymbal. And
that's
that's
right.
exactly it. You do what you do. I think the greatest example, and I always go back to that, the greatest example that we have of love and unconditional love and care and unconditional care is through that of Jesus. I think
Amen.
he's the greatest example
Amen.
that we have of what it means to care for somebody else, what it means, because reality is sometimes the people you care for, sometimes, not all the time, but they don't always love you the same. They don't always reciprocate.
Right.
But
Right.
the example of being able to do it with no strings attached, to do it with no hesitation.
Right.
When I think about my mom and my grandmother, the fact that the thing that always keeps me grounded even in my serving is understanding that, yes, it's a great sacrifice for me to do what I do.
Yeah.
It's a great sacrifice. You end up, there's a lot of things that sometimes you want to do that you just can't do at the time. But the thing that keeps me grounded in that, especially being a parent, is realizing that when I was younger, she made the same level of sacrifice. As parents,
Absolutely.
they make the same level of sacrifice because, I'm sure that there were places she wanted to go, things that she wanted to do, but having a
Hmm.
child that you have to rear, you don't always get to do that. And
That's right.
so to me, it's the same level of sacrifice. It's what I say all the time and say in the book that I'm going to finish up, not before the end of this year, but before the middle of next year. It really is love in reverse.
Yes.
It's love in reverse. You're giving back what
Yes.
you've gotten. The subtopic on my book, and I'm looking up on my wall because I do have a vision of it on my wall, but it's love in reverse. Is my turn to care, right?
Yes.
Because she did it for me,
Absolutely.
and so you do the same thing. And so, you
Absolutely.
know, back to you serving the city, caring for your spouse. It's demanding out there in the city. And I live in the city of Tallahassee, right here with you. And outside of friendship, I keep up with what's going on in the city, in the news, and it's demanding out there in this old world, in this city. And so, how do you balance that, commissioner commissioner Cox and wife, sweetheart, that's what you call her, my sweetheart? How do you balance that because both of those are demanding.
Yes. Well, it ain't easy, but I will say this, that my husband has a great respect for the work that I do. He supports what I do. We work around my schedule so that I can make the meetings and the events that I'm committed to. And I have a great chief of staff who schedules me out so that I am able to have the time that I need to do what I need to do. When I have appointments with him, of course, I can't have meetings scheduled at that time. Or if I have a meeting scheduled and I have to do an appointment, then we have to reschedule. So Dr. Tawanda Diavola Davis, she manages my calendar. She understands. She knows what it is that I need to do, and so we make sure that we have what we need. And the cell phone is one of the greatest things ever created, but it's also one of the worst things ever created.
Yeah.
But my husband has a cell phone. If there is issue or whatever, he can try to reach me, and I also check in, and our kids check in to make sure things are in place. Or I will let them know that I have to travel. A couple of weeks ago, I had to go to DC. So one of my sons, whenever I'm traveling, he's always here at night to make sure, and they're all are checking in during the day to make sure he has meals, or I make sure meals are left behind. But you're right. The city work is demanding, but it's also rewarding. It's therapeutic when it's connecting people with solutions, and that's what I love to do, to represent the people who may feel as though they don't have a voice, help them to understand. I say my job as a city commissioner is to educate and to advocate, because so many don't know what it is that we do, and so many don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And I was the same way. I didn't know either. I used to go down to the city commission meeting, raising all kinds of sand because I didn't have information. So I want people to have that information so they will know that I'm working for you. I'm happy to work for you. I'm glad to work for you. And try to connect them to the solutions. It doesn't always work like I want it to work, of course, because we're all human beings and we all have different needs and we all have different minds and lived experiences. So sometimes it gets a little messy, and that causes my heart to just kind of just pitter patter. But I've got to remember that I can only control what I can control, and I have to turn that stuff over to the good Lord, because He knows the heart of all of us. And He knows what we're doing, what we want to do, and just kind of where things are. So I have to kind of just back up, and I hear Him sometimes saying, I got it. I got this, and so I have to let go and let Him have it, because otherwise, I find myself spiraling and spinning. And I've had a day like that today. But right now, I've gone through the day pretty much. I got a few other things I got to do this afternoon, but He has allowed me to just breathe and just know that everything doesn't have to have my hand on it.
Yeah.
His hands have to be on it. And in His hands, it's going to all be all right.
All of it is gonna be good. And listen, let me throw this in there. I think you are doing an absolute great job. I love
Thank you.
the work that you're doing. And you do it with passion. You do it with, all of your heart. And you can tell that, some people get into politics, get into these positions for just that, for the politics of it. But, when you have somebody who really does have the heart of the constituents in their heart, that makes all the difference in the world. And I can honestly say, and watching you, that is exactly what I see. And so, just a
Well, thank you.
sidebar off of this, you are appreciated. You're appreciated
Thank you.
in this
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
and so what I hear you saying as well is community, family community as well is very important because
Yes.
it works. The balance works great when you have, that community that can step in and can help you to do what you need to do when you need to do it.
Yes.
And so, I will ask this question: when you don't have community, when you don't have those people there, what would your advice be to those who may not have that community that feel like, man, if I had that, I could balance. Right now, it's because sometimes it can feel like it's unbalanced, you know.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
when there are those moments, what advice would you give to someone, especially a spouse that's caring for another spouse who, whether they're children, they may not come by, or they may be in a different city or state,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they are caring? What advice can you give to them?
Well, first of all, I would say that you've got to look internally and try um, not to internalize it so much. And you can't feel guilty. Uh, you can cry if you want to cry, because that's therapeutic too. The Lord put those in us so that it could come out of us, so that I think tears wash the heart. Tears cleanse the heart. I think that connecting to organizations. You may not have the community that you know and love, but connecting to organizations. When I was caring for my grandmother, one of the things that I did, my boys played sports. I joined the Football Booster Club because I could then focus on providing service for that organization while I supported my son who was playing football. And I ended up being the president of Football Boosters and all of that. Joining church groups where you can go and be around other people who are like-minded, finding strength in learning of other people's stories, writing a book like you're doing. Put your thoughts and words in a journal that could one day become your story to strengthen and encourage others. And absolutely, the first thing you should do is pray. If
Yeah.
that is what you believe. Now, I am like, as I've already said, I am a believer in God the Father, Jesus the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I am who I am because of who they are. But if you don't have that, then there are other things that you can do. Read other people's stories. Learn from them. When I was growing up and we didn't have cable, I read, got books from the library and read, and that's how I traveled, by reading what others were doing. I always loved to read about what the president's wives, what made them tick, what was going on with their mysteries and things that would give me would feed my brain, but also feed my intellect so that I could then begin to look for more. So if you don't have the community where people are coming by and say, "Hey, how you doing? Let us know if you need anything." Um, you have to generate your own community. And in this world since COVID, we have at our fingertips the world.
Yeah, that's very true.
We have the world. You can go to social media. You got to be very careful out there, though. But you can go see how others are surviving. Get some inspiration from them. The Bible is full of stories of inspiration and resiliency. And when people didn't do it right, and it's riveting. The Old Testament is full of stories of how people suffered, survived, and overcame. You think about what happened with Joseph being put in a pit, but by the time you get into the story, he's in the palace
Yeah.
providing for his family. These are the kinds of inspirations and things that will keep you going to help you build your community. And if you are a person of faith, uh, join in with other people of faith who are having a similar walk with you. And I know in your case, you have a church family. I have a church family. I have a sorority that also feeds me and is a part of my community that came along right after I lost my grandmother. And so, it's 30 years ago. So these is those kinds of things that you have to go out and help generate. You can't curl up on the floor and just cry and die. You've got to
Right.
come back. I said that to a friend of mine recently. She lost her husband a year ago. I said, you got to come back to us. He's gone. He's not coming back. And he's not sick where he is. So we need you to be whole. So, you just got to create your own community.
Yeah. And while we're talking about resources, she put that in there. I am going to throw this plug in as well. You can visit my website at www.priscillajjohnlouis, PriscillaJean-Louis.com. On there, you will find the resource spot where there are some different resources. There are some books out there that have helped me along my journey, as well as information regarding different resources that are out there, different ones that have been on the podcast. Their information is out there. So that is one resource that you have right there. And that's very important, Dianne, that you said, we can't, what I've also learned, because what happens sometimes is sometimes we do gather that thought process of, well, people know where I am, they know what I'm doing, they should call me or they should do that. And some of them do. But what I also had to realize is people aren't mind readers. People don't know,
Shut mouths don't
sometimes,
get fed.
yeah. And sometimes, you can make it seem so easy that people think, hey, you got it all together, right? And so
Right.
there's absolutely nothing wrong with throwing your flag up and saying, hey, I need help. That's something I had to learn myself, because I was so used to just doing everything myself,
Right.
handling everything myself. I have a very strong willed mom who, independent, some of it not, by choice, she just had to be. And so growing up, I watched her do the same thing where she had to make it happen. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you grow up that way and you learn that way, sometimes it's easy to think, oh, I can just do it myself.
Right.
And you realize that you don't have to. And so, if you're out there, whether you're a spouse or you're just a caregiver, first of all, there's two of us right here, right now, who letting you know that you're not in this alone. You're not out
Amen.
here by yourself. You're not serving by yourself. It might seem that way sometimes, but you're not. There's a whole community of people. That's the one thing that I'm doing. Even with my platform, the goal is to build a community of those that care so that you can know that you're not in this by yourself. And so,
Right.
even with that, get, yeah, those resources, they are great. It's different, sometimes as spouses, I'm not married at this point, but I have been, right? And so as
Mm-hmm.
spouses, you're married, you're in this relationship, and in a perfect world, you will, get married and have your happily ever after, not have any sickness, not have any death, not have, but that's in a perfect world. And we live in an imperfect world. And you don't know when life, as I said earlier, you don't know when life is gonna life,
That's
when
right.
things are gonna take a turn. And
Right.
so, even in that, you realize that, you know, hey, as I said earlier, caring touches everybody. You
Yes,
could be a
indeed.
millionaire, you could be, a $10 heir, whatever you want to call it. But when it happens and you find yourself there, you got to make a decision on
Yep.
what it is you're going to do.
Yes, that's right.
It's easy to stop, right? I could have easily stopped and just decided that this was going to be it. Caring is going to be what it is, but you make a decision and say, you know what, I can take this and I can lay down in it, or I can help other people. And that is the goal, is to be able to let other people know, my caring deals with Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
Yours is totally different. And so this podcast is, although it's not just about it's caregivers
Caregivers. Yeah.
are caregivers. And so, I mean, being a spouse that's working, and usually, yeah, it is a lot of times the women, but sometimes it's not, right? So you're
Right.
talking about
Right.
your husband who, after 23 years, you said,
Yeah. Of working.
working, couldn't work anymore. So you're the caregiver. You're the one that still has to work. You know how many people despise stuff like that? How many people just, unfortunately, you have people that will walk away from relationships in
Yeah.
that type of situation. But
Yeah.
it does go back to what you said earlier. That's sickness, health, good, bad, right? Those are those vows that
Right.
you made. And so, the wonderful thing about it is, I look at caregiving as serving. It is caring, it is giving care, but I also look at it as serving.
Yes.
serving my mom, being able to serve her in that same manner, and the same tenacity, the same passion that you give to serving the city of Tallahassee. From the outside looking in, I see that you do the same thing with your husband, and I think that that is to be that's what should be done, right? Like,
Absolutely. Like I said, love is a verb.
yeah,
If you love, then you do what's needed. You do what is required. You don't want them to suffer any harm. I hate to see people suffering.
yeah,
It really bothers me to see anyone suffering, and especially someone who I know and love. So I'm going to do what I can to try to prevent them from suffering, or if I find them in a suffering state, I'm going to try to do something to try to make them whole.
yeah. And that's exactly what it's all about. That's what it's all about, y'all. And so I know you have your sons. I know you have your grandkids that come by, which is absolutely awesome. Um, One of the things I want to know, just because it is National Caregivers Month, whole month of January, whole month of November, we got a whole month that has been set aside. President Biden, I think it was on Monday or Tuesday, he, did his proclamation. I thought it was absolutely honorable and awesome. And I think it's been done by presidents before him, but I love to see it, right? Because,
Hmm.
um, like I said earlier, I think that all caregivers should be celebrated. It doesn't take away from anybody else, it really
Right.
doesn't. But I think that it's a wonderful thing to have people acknowledge and realize that, you know what, this person is, they're pretty outstanding. And I do. Again, I don't say that because I'm one. I say it because I think it's absolutely outstanding. And so, even with you on your journey, what are some other ways that people can support you on your journey, or somebody else that's caring? When you think about um, this month and what it stands for caregivers, what are some ways that you can be supported in even your caregiving journey?
Well, I appreciate you saying that and asking that question. I really don't take the time to think about it. I know that every day is a different day, and you have to deal with what comes in that particular day. There are times when you know that on this day we're going to have to do this, and so in a support role, you sometimes you might need somebody to do something that you were supposed to do. You need somebody to fill in for you, or you need somebody to do that for you. I think that it is important that you maintain the priority of providing the care that is needed, and working around whatever those schedules are. So I just, for me, I just wish for others to just understand that we are human beings. We have feelings, we have emotions, and sometimes folks come after you. They come in a attack mode because they don't like something that you've said or something that you're doing or something that you're not saying. But just understand that all of us got our luggage, and as Dion say, is Louis. And the luggage that we have over here, it is Louis, because it is the top priority that we take care of one another, because he cares for me as well, when the time comes. So just understand that, and I say this all the time. I do not have time to play reindeer games. Because the time that I'm doing that is time I'm taking away from doing something really important that I need to be doing. And so I just ask folks to just understand that there's really no time to be to play political games, or to do gotchas. This is life, is like you said, life is lifing, and it is real. And so every little thing that you do has an impact on your life or the life of others who you're working with or dealing with, caring, providing care for. You
Yeah,
know, so just keep that in mind, that I may not get it right all the time, but I don't need a public flogging because I didn't get it right. Come
that's
to
right.
me, talk to me, like I'm a human being as well, and if there's an issue, let's resolve the issue. We don't have to do the showdown and the knockdown drag out. We don't have to do that.
Right.
So
Because
that's
let me ask this question. You just made me think about it. Even in your position, how many people actually know that you're not just Commissioner Dianne Williams-Cox? You're also, when you take that hat off, you are also a caregiver. How many people actually know that?
I really do not know. I've just begun to share a little bit more because sometimes I may be missing in action, and that's because I'm having to be somewhere else. So I'm beginning to share a little bit more so that folks will know why I might not be able to attend your event or your function because I've got to do something else. And so I don't know how many know that, but I think that what you're doing and inviting me to come here will open it up not just about what I'm doing or what you're doing, but what other caregivers are doing as well. Because if you're the life of the party and you are always here and all of a sudden you're missing, that means that something has happened or something is going on. And so I think people understand it better when they know that life happened, like you
Right.
said. Love is required, care is required, and so that's what I am. That's what I'm doing. So if you don't see me somewhere, that means that I am somewhere else doing what it is that I needed to do. That was more important. That I do not be offended.
Yeah.
Just know that I will. If I can, I'll let you know as soon as it's possible that I won't be able to make it. But if I can't, I'll let you know after the fact that I'm sorry I couldn't be there because I had to do this. So I don't know how many know, but I'm just beginning to share it more because you just do what you do.
Yeah.
You don't I'm not looking for the light to be shined on me.
Yeah.
I'm just doing what I need to do. I'm doing for trying to fulfill my obligation, trying to take care of my family, and just make life good for us as best it can be.
Yeah. And I think it's very important that just people in general, anybody, whether it's somebody you know or somebody you don't know, I think it's very important that we just give each other grace. We give each other
Absolutely.
grace because at the end of the day, you really don't know what a person is dealing with, and unless you really
Exactly.
know them, and they have shared that with you, you don't know that. Hey, I'm commissioner. I've been in the commission meeting on Wednesday from whatever time until whatever time it ends, and you don't know that when I got home. Yeah, I got home 9, 10 o'clock, and I've been up until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm back here. And
Right.
so the moment that I'm not my best self, it's a conclusion. And I mean that's anybody, right? I just
Yeah.
use you as an example, but people have no idea. I mean, there are times when I'm up half the night. You know what the
Right.
last 3 months looked like for me,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
so I'm like, you have no idea. So you got to give a little grace just to people in general. I mean, we're living in a different, that's the best word I can use for it right now.
Yes.
We're living in a different time. We're living
Yeah.
in a different world, a different society. And, people are, everybody has their own issues going on. And so
Yes.
we got to be able to give each other grace because reality is you don't know what moment could be that moment that or what button could be that button to push somebody over the edge.
Right.
And so you got to give that grace for that. And
Right.
so you know um kudos to you is all I can say. Kudos.
Kudos to you too.
Open.
Kudos
Okay.
to you too. I admire you so much that you're caring for your mother. What greater love could there be than for you to care for your mother? And you're showing your daughters how to care for your mother. So if one day they have to take care of you, you're showing them how you're doing it with grace, with dignity, and you're poised. You're not allowing any harm to come to your mother. You're like that protector around her. You don't allow her to be exposed to anything that's going to cause harm to her, even though it might cause harm to you. You're not allowing it to cause harm to her. So kudos to you, Priscilla. I just you're just a marvel, and I appreciate you for being an inspiration for so many of us. Such an inspiration.
God be praised. I got one final question before we get off. And this is just, I just want to know, not so much you maybe, but what are the top three things that someone could do, in your opinion, based off of you or just your opinion? What are the top three things someone can do to celebrate you or others during this National Family Caregivers Association Caregivers Appreciation Month? What are the top three things, if you had to just off the top of your head, what can somebody do? I know you mentioned, the other things, but what are
Show
three things?
love, show love, show love.
There it is.
It's really just that simple. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone. Dogs want to be loved, cats want to be loved, human beings want to be loved. And it does something mentally, socially, emotionally, because we are social and emotional beings. Show love. Sometimes you just need a hug. You
Yeah.
just need a hug or a phone call. I'm just checking in on you because you crossed my mind. I'm just want you to know we're praying for you and praying with you. And I get these. I get this. Love is being shown to me in these ways. Drop a card or something in the mail sometimes to brighten someone's day. Today, I was just talking to talking to my little sister on my dad's side. Today is the day our daddy died 7 years
Oh,
ago.
wow. Okay.
And, I couldn't understand why I was feeling kind of off balance and what have you. And then I realized that it's today. But my sister called me this afternoon to share some good news that she had gotten about an honor that she is receiving. And so that has given me joy. That has
Yeah.
given this day a new meaning, that the legacy that our dad poured into us is continuing. And we know that he's smiling in heaven because his baby girls are continuing to carry his legacy. And that's love. He
Yeah.
loved us to be able to pour his life into us like that. And it is up to us to carry and continue that. So show love, show love, show love is
Yeah.
the top three things that you could do, in my opinion, for caregivers, because they are pouring out all the love that they have. They're pouring it out to the one that they're providing care to. So help replenish them by showing love.
I love it. And there it is, y'all. That is exactly, and that's what Commissioner does, all the time. I absolutely, we have just throw this on there. We get on Morning Glow. Morning Glow is a prayer. Elevate Church Tallahassee with Dr. Tawanda Davis. It's a prayer that's been going on now for about 5 years,
Uh-huh.
almost 5 years. And so every Monday morning, Commissioner gets on that prayer line, and one of the things she says, I ain't gonna let no rocks cry out for me.
Amen.
And this
Amen.
is who she is all the time. And I don't think that there's anybody better, anybody who's leading, that's being led by God. I don't think you can go wrong in that instance at all. And so again, Commissioner, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've had a busy yesterday, probably busy today, but thank you for taking out of your time to come on the podcast with me on the day to help me kick off this National Family Caregivers Celebration Month, celebrating caregivers. And I am convinced, and I know that those that listen to this episode will be motivated, encouraged, and inspired by this conversation. I'm certain that somebody will listen to it and they will hold on a little while longer. They will give it everything they have, because they see you doing the same, and they understand that, hey, life might be demanding, but at the same time, Commissioner's doing it, I can do it too. So
Well, to
do
God
know.
be the glory. To God be the glory. And thank you for the invitation. And thank you for what you're doing in our community and your daughters. You have two remarkable daughters who I adore. And so thank you for all that you're doing. And I adore your mom too. I know that right now she's being health challenged, but prior to that, she was who she was
Yeah,
and
that's
who
my
she
lady.
still is.
That is my lady. So know that I celebrate you as a caregiver. I
Thank you.
celebrate you I honor you, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for who you are and for the work that you are doing here in our community and abroad. You know, you're doing your thing on all levels, and so thank you again for this opportunity. Um, I look forward to talking to you again one day real soon. And, I'm going to share some other stuff, but keep that date, March 2nd, on your calendar. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But we got some great things coming up with the My Favorite Girl Caregivers Corner podcast. My Favorite Girl in Alzheimer's, as well as Kaylin's Caring Connection.com. We got some great things coming up, and we'll be sharing that with you really soon. So thank you again and have a great one.